drugs and substance abuse in mental health. And we are going to see how drugs and substance abuse affect mental health. And first of all, we are going to look at how drugs and substance abuse causes mental health. So we see that if people abuse drugs and substances, it tends to trigger mental health. If you overdo drugs, it tends to trigger mental health. Secondly, it tends to worsen. If you have mental health, it can worsen it if you take a lot of drugs. Thirdly, it can cause, you didn't have any mental health, but you can start having mental health by taking substances and drugs. So these, the kind of disorders that can come with drugs and substance abuse are depression, anxiety, psychosis, which is the madness that is caused by drugs. We have mood disorders. Your memory can be affected, and also cognitive impairment. So we see if you take a lot of drugs, you can start being depressed. Okay, maybe there were issues at home, maybe issues at work. You can start having depression because it will either be triggered by the drugs or it can be caused by the drugs. Also, we have anxiety. You've seen a lot of people maybe with who take a lot of drugs, like let's say bang or alcohol. They start having episodes of anxiety. This is because they've taken too much of the drugs. So this anxiety can affect you. It can affect your mood. So you find such people, their mood starts, the moods can vary at any time. They get angry very fast. Sometimes they can be too excited. You see, so you can see that these mental health disorders can either be caused or triggered by taking a lot of drugs and substance abuse. Also, secondly, we want to look at drugs and substance abuse as a consequence of mental health. So, we've seen that if you use a lot of drugs, it can be a consequence. Maybe you already had mental health issues, and after having mental health issues, maybe there's issue at home or at work, at your workplace, and you find yourself taking drugs maybe to calm yourself. Examples, like for example, there are these drugs that you can self-medicate yourself. If you self-medicate yourself with drugs, it can start causing mental disorder. So the substance abuse can come because, like, the substance abuse can make you have a consequence of mental health disorder, because already you are depressed or already you are anxious about something. You go and take drugs. So it is a consequence because it is the mental health disorder that has pushed you. This means that it is the mental health disorder that has pushed you to taking the drugs. Unlike the first one, you took the drugs and it caused mental health. But this second one, you were not on any drugs. You were just okay, but you just developed mental health disorders. So after you having these mental health disorders, you find yourself pushing yourself to start having drugs and substance abuse. So this is the second way of consequences of like drug abuse as a consequence of mental health disorder. So there are only two ways about it. It can either be a cause or it can be a consequence. So thirdly, we're going to look at commonly abused drugs. Which are the commonly abused drugs in Kenya? We have the first one, the main one is alcohol. And we've seen, like here in Kilifi, a lot of people are overdoing alcohol. So this overdoing of alcohol, it can cause a lot of things, among them being mental health disorders. So too much of alcohol can either cause or be a consequence of mental health disorder. The second drug is bang. Taking too much bang can either cause or it can be a consequence sorry, or it can be a consequence of mental health disorder. Thirdly, we have self-medicated drugs. For example, tramadol. You see, there are drugs that you're given maybe for pain, but once you take them, you find yourself that you discover that if I take this and this drug, apart from relieving the pain, it helps me calm, it helps me sleep. So you find yourself that you want to take this drug so that you can be calm. You want to take this drug so that you can be able to sleep. So this becomes, if you do this oftenly, it becomes drug abuse. And you find that like this tramadol is meant for pain, but there are people who abuse it and start using it for other things. And once you become addicted to it, you can't survive without. You find you're addicted to a drug and you can't do without. There are people you see, they can't do without Piriton, they can't sleep without Piriton. And if you start doing that, the minute you lack that Piriton, now you'll start developing other health or mental health issues. So we should avoid being addicted to medicated drugs, be it medicated at prescribed drugs at hospitals, or even you should even avoid self-prescription. So don't prescribe yourself any type of drugs. Another drug that is being abused mostly is tobacco. We have tobacco and nicotine. A lot of people abuse tobacco and nicotine. And you find these days, I've seen a lot of people, even the younger generation, the Gen Zs are being addicted to these drugs. You find people who can't do without them. And it's so bad that they get so addicted that even they don't even know the side effects of these drugs. These drugs have so many side effects. We've seen like the mirror that people chew. The mirror that people chew even has a lot of side effects, even to men, in their health. But these children don't know. But when they start doing it, they don't know. And I just wish, before engaging in any type of drug or substance abuse, can you do a research about it? Can you do a research and know what are the side effects of this thing if I overdo it? So that if you start, you can be able to know that I'm not supposed to overdo it. If I overdo, this and this will happen. So we have had drugs. Hard drugs like heroin and cocaine also are being overly used by people. Uh, I've also mentioned mirror in this case. So we've seen people that are overdoing either of these or two or more. And by overdoing this, we've seen a lot of people going crazy because of these drugs. They're becoming crazy because of overdoing the drugs. And it is not good. They get psychosis. And this psychosis, I've seen a lot of teenagers getting this psychosis. You find someone who is just walking along the way and they're talking to themselves. Just the reason being they have overused these drugs. They've overused a lot. They've taken a lot of alcohol. They've taken a lot of bang. They've taken a lot of mirror. And parents, I think parents are too busy to even notice that their children are into drugs. So how do we help these children? How do we help these teenagers to get out of these drugs? We have rehab centers where we can take these kids so that they can be helped, so that they can stop taking these drugs. So parents, we have to be keen and to be on the lookout, because you might be thinking you have a very good child at home who doesn't take drugs, but once you are away, they do a lot of things behind your back. If you are a very busy parent, learn to be friends with your neighbors, because those are the people who notice those funny behaviors in our kids. Those are the people who can tell you, I saw your kid somewhere, and this is maybe a base where people are chewing mirror, people are taking alcohol, people are smoking bang. So you should be on the lookout for people who can help you take care of your children when you are away. People who can help you identify your children if your children have started taking these drugs. Also, we want to look at the vulnerable groups who are being affected by these drugs and substance abuse. First of all, we have youth and students. We've seen students in universities, even in high school. We have students who drop out because of drugs. They start abusing drugs slowly, and once they are addicted, they can't even concentrate in their studies. So we have these students, teenagers, and the youth who are overusing these drugs and substances. This is the major group that is being affected. Our youths today are not safe. And if you think your child is safe wherever they aren't safe at all, at all. Because we have people who are taking these drugs around us. And it just takes a minute to introduce them to these drugs. So your children are not safe. You have to be on the lookout. Because the youth and teenagers are the most vulnerable groups that are affected by drugs and substance abuse. Another group is the urban poor. The urban poor, you find them, they are in town, they live in towns, but they can't afford lifestyles, the expensive lifestyle. So how are they affected? How can they be affected by these drugs and substance abuse? You find they are idle. Most of them are idle. Once they are idle, they get attached to too attached to people who are doing the drugs. So they fall into peer pressure. So with time, they are introduced to these drugs. And once they are introduced, with time, they get addicted. So the urban poor are at a very high risk of getting of getting themselves into drugs and substance abuse. You find they are so poor that they are invited to by people who can buy for them the drugs. It's not like they buy themselves those drugs even most of the time. They don't buy the drugs, they are given. So you find that someone gives them the drugs for free, and once they are addicted, they start withdrawing that free offer. So you'll find these drugs and substance abuse can lead even to theft, because once they are addicted and these free offer drugs are withdrawn, they'll they'll have the thirst for the drugs, and this will lead them to start stealing and selling things that are either in the house or things that are not theirs. They start selling things so that they can acquire the drugs and substances. So the urban poor is the second group that is affected by drugs and substance abuse. We also have people with trauma histories. People with trauma histories, like you find people with, if it's ladies, maybe they were raped. You've seen people who have been gang raped. We've seen people who have gone even postpartum depression. So these people are at a very high risk of getting themselves into drugs and substance abuse. Because once you have the trauma and it disturbs you so much, you'll be driven to look for something that can calm you. So it doesn't have to be alcohol, it doesn't have to be bang, but it can be these self-medicated drugs. You find a substance like tramadol, maybe. A woman who has already given birth, or maybe they gave birth, they had a stillbirth, or their child died after birth. So you find that they're given drugs that can help them calm after that stress. So during that period, they find themselves that they are addicted to this drug, and they can't stop it. So once they continue abusing this drug, you find that they get addicted to it. So trauma, people that have history with trauma are at a very high risk of getting themselves addicted to drugs and substance abuse. We also have people with untreated mental illness. So people with untreated mental illness, they'll also find something that can calm them. They'll find something that can help them feel more of a human being, something that